Right, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Cami Welch. I'm the president and CEO here at the Arvada Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for signing on with us today for our All About the Ballot webinar. This is a new format for us. Historically, we've done this in person, and this year we are doing this virtually for a couple reasons. One, we want to make sure that the information that's shared is able to be distributed far and wide. And so you likely got an alert that this is being recorded as you signed on. And that's for good reason, because we certainly want all of you to have access to this information, but we do want to be able to post this to our voter guide as well, which I will drop a link in the chat here for you. So you can dig into that after today's webinar if you choose to, but we want to make sure that everyone has access to this information. A couple other things I just want to make sure you know about as far as our process goes. We always do our best to make sure that we're bringing a proponent and an opponent to these conversations. This year is a little bit different because not all ballot questions have formalized opposition this year. And we define formalized opposition as a filed opposition where it's not just a person against it or a person that doesn't like it, but a formal campaign that has been pulled together. So that is why today we will have some opposition, but some of the ballot questions you're going to hear will not have that formal opposition tied to them. So please know that that is our process and how we make that decision. As I noted, we'll drop that voter guide into the chat for you. I do want to recognize that we had a oversight on our end at the Arvada Chamber, and during our candidate forum, we did miss a candidate, Eric Bodenstab, in our forum. He's on here with us today. Hello, Eric. Thank you for joining.
Hi.
So we did do give Eric the opportunity to answer the question. So I'm also going to drop that link in the chat too, so you all have access to that since he did not get the opportunity to participate due to our mistake in that forum. So please take a look at Eric and what he has to offer to this campaign. With that, I'm going to move us quickly through this today. I've warned all of our speakers that I'm going to run a tight ship, and so I'll introduce them. They're going to go, and we're going to move fast and furious through a lot of information today. Again, this is being recorded, so you can share it or go back and listen again if it's a lot to cover. So please join me in welcoming Commissioner Leslie Dahlkemper to talk to us about the support position for Jeffco 1A. Commissioner, please take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Cami. And a huge thanks to the Arvada Chamber for hosting today's election forum. We appreciate it. Voters have a lot of decisions to make on what is a very long ballot. I'm here today to talk with you about Jeffco Revenue Retention Measure 1A and asking for your support. As many of you know, Jefferson County is at a crossroads. It is an incredible place to live, to work, start a business, raise a family, retire, and so much more. One of the things that we're seeing in Jefferson County is that our population is rapidly growing, even more so than the surrounding counties in the metro area. And that's no surprise to those of us who live here. But with that rapidly growing population comes increased strain on the provision of county services that we all rely on that have a direct impact on our quality of life. Areas like public safety or roads and infrastructure. One of the issues, for example, that we face is Jefferson County ranks #1 in the state for wildfire risk, especially as it relates to the loss of property. And that issue has only become more extreme in the last couple of years. We saw that with the quarry fire, and then just 2 weeks after the quarry fire, the Gultra fire. So reducing wildfire risk is top of mind for all of us. In addition, public safety is the largest segment of our general revenue fund. But the sheriff's office has not seen an increase in sheriff's deputies, even though our population has gone up since 2003. We're also facing a $631 million backlog in transportation projects. And those are simply things like fixing potholes, maintaining roads, ensuring that our aging bridges are well maintained and taken care of. When we think about the county budget, we think of it as more than a big stack of indecipherable numbers. It really is a document, a moral document that we work on with you, our community, to determine what our priorities are, what matters, and how do we ensure we're good stewards of your taxpayer dollars. We take that very seriously. The other area we consider is what's mandated and what's not mandated. And in just a moment, I'll talk more about 1A and how 1A helps to address some of these issues I'm laying out this morning. One of the issues that we face, for example, is that if the sheriff were here, she would say to you that running the county jail is mandated, right? The county is an extension of the state. What's not mandated are areas like school resource officers. We allocate county funding to school resource officers in 16 schools, including schools in Arvada, because we think it's important in terms of safety. We also have a drug task force, which we also allocate dollars to, but it's not mandated. Another unit that we have deals with sex crimes and predators and children. It's called the CHISO unit. Some of you may be familiar with the CHISO unit. That also is not mandated, nor is animal control. But these are all county services that are important to our quality of life, that are important to safety, and much more. So what is 1A? What's 1A all about? 1A would eliminate the state mandated cap. So to help pay for these essential services, the county collects property taxes and some other fees as well. Those dollars go into the general revenue fund. We're authorized to collect those dollars. As soon as those dollars begin to go over our mandated cap by the state, we return those dollars to you in the form of a refund check. How many of you received your refund checks last fall? So you know then, thank you, Katie. You know then that those refund checks vary widely. The average amount just for last year's refund check was $100. When you average out those refund checks over 3 years, it comes out to about $22. 1A would eliminate the cap, and instead of issuing a refund check, would reinvest those dollars into 2 areas you told us were most important to you. Public safety, which includes crime prevention, mental health, and more. And it would also be allocated, the funds would be allocated to roads, infrastructure, aging bridges, and more. And safety also includes wildfire risk, and I think that's important to underscore. In addition, the ballot language ensures that the funds are audited every year. So we're very transparent. We're held accountable for where those dollars are allocated. There's another really critical part of 1A that I want to share with you that we are excited about, and that is ensuring that state grants that help with reducing wildfire risk, that help with housing that's more affordable, that help with mental health, crime prevention, all of those issues that are important to us as a community and as a county, no longer count against our Tabor cap. Here's a quick example. Jefferson County advocated for additional funding to help address wildfire resiliency, to keep our community safe. The state was issuing grants to the tune of about $1 million or more. Jefferson County wasn't able to accept that grant for $1 million because it would push us over our Tabor cap. 1A would eliminate the cap and would ensure that state grants no longer count against our our state mandated cap. I got ahead of myself there. But other counties like Jeffco, which have eliminated their cap, El Paso, which have eliminated their cap, can benefit from state grants. It's also important to point out that as taxpayers, we pay into those state grants. We want to ensure that we bring those dollars back to our county to address wildfire resiliency, transportation, and more. This year, Jefferson County is poised to refund $30.5 million. Again, we'd like to use those dollars with voter permission for roads and public safety. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, wait a second, the value of my home went up. I'm paying more dollars in property taxes. What gives? The county should have enough money with these surplus dollars. That question brings us full circle to where we started. Because of the state mandated cap, any dollars above what we're able to collect and invest in essential county services are returned to you in a refund check. The county is poised, just like you, we have to balance our budget. We are poised to make up to $20 million in budget cuts this year. This isn't the first time we've made budget cuts. We've made budget cuts in the past to the tune of almost $25 million. We're always looking for greater efficiency. We want to ensure that we're not duplicating services, and we want to make sure that we're innovative as well. And we continue to get high rankings in terms of our budget work and our financials from one of the national organizations that looks at government financing, and we're really proud of that. Let me also share what 1A does not do. 1A does not affect your state refund. It does affect your county refund. Again, those dollars would now be invested, if approved by voters, in roads and safety. It does not eliminate Tabor. In fact, it does exactly what Tabor tells us to do, and that is to come to you, our community, to ask for permission to eliminate this cap. And then finally, it does not increase your tax rate. The mill levy rate does not increase. That's not what we're asking. We're simply asking to remove the cap. Finally, in just the remaining time I have, I do want to address something that you may hear from Ms. Menton, and that involves a consulting firm that we worked with. And that firm was hired by the county staff to take a look at what your priorities were in terms of the budget. We needed to hear our community's thinking on these issues. And we did focus groups, we did interviews and much more to learn about what your budget priorities are. And that is in fact reflected in the ballot language. In addition, we know that the county is going to continue to face these budget gaps. And so we wanted to talk with community members about what our potential options might be. What long-term funding mechanisms could we look at? I want to be really clear that the county did not hire the consulting firm to convince voters to pass a ballot initiative. The county has an ongoing budget shortfall that we have to address in years to come, year after year. So the consulting firm helped the county better understand your priorities in addressing this shortfall. And now that the BCC Board of County Commissioners has moved forward with this ballot question, the county's work with this company has come to an end. They went through a competitive bidding process, just like every firm that is hired by the county team. In closing, I want to encourage you to look at yesononejeffco.com. That's our website. We're so proud to have endorsements from the Arvada Firefighters Association, Jeffco Economic Development Corporation, the Fraternal Order of Police, League of Women Voters, Jeffco, and Home Builders. It's really a diverse group supporting this effort. Not only is it good for our quality of life, but it's important for a strong Jeffco for generations to come. Yes, on 1ajeffco.com. Thanks so much, Cammie.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate that. And thank you for staying in your time limits. Appreciate that very much today. I do want to note for all of you, if you have questions as you're hearing these presentations that are coming up, feel free to use that chat and put those questions in. If our speakers want to respond to those questions live in the chat, that's fine. I will also leave a little space at the end for us to answer and have discussion around questions, again, depending on how much time. We have 5 minutes dedicated right now at the end, but happy to add a little bit more. As promised, we do have opposition, and I know this was teased out, but please join me in welcoming Natalie Minton to tell us a little bit about her thoughts on 1A. Thank you.
I'm glad to be here again. I'm Natalie Minton. I am with the Keep Our Tax Caps campaign, meaning no, vote no on issue 1A. While the proponents have continued to try and use words that are implying this is not a tax increase, it is in fact a tax increase. Over years, Jefferson County has kept its Tabor revenue caps, along with the longstanding state statute that says government revenue, property tax revenue, shall not grow more than 5.5% year over year. We have had these longstanding protections for a good reason. When we see a spike in property values, which we really don't control, what the effect is our tax bills go up. What Jefferson County will be doing with issue 1A, if it should pass, although voters have said no twice in the last 5 years, is that it will eliminate the tax caps. And when we see a spike in values, the property owners, the renters, and consumers are negatively going to be impacted. It will increase our cost of living in Jefferson County. Now, I might take a stab that perhaps people do like Jefferson County and are moving here because they also like these limited property tax caps that we have in place. Jeffco issue 1A will eliminate the Tabor property tax cap found in section 7C. Jeffco issue 1A will eliminate the statutory property tax protection for homeowners, renters, consumers, which says no more than 5.5% year over year property tax increase in revenue. These are the things that the consumers are very interested in, and keeping their cost of living low. But to further address this, there were many governments within the state of Colorado that eliminated their property tax caps over years. That created a property tax crisis, resulting in not one, but two legislative special sessions. One of them occurred just in August. What Jefferson County would be doing if 1A should pass would also be eliminating the cap that's fresh with the ink barely dry. So while the proponents state that Jeffco is one of the rare ones with property tax caps, that's actually not true. What issue 1A would do is actually make us the first to eliminate all protections, including the ones that were generated out of the compromise during the special session. Let's go on to a couple little other things here. And first, let's remember the county in years past addressed these property tax caps correctly. What they did was reduce our mill levy so that we were not overcollected from in the first place. Owners, renters, consumers, have been choosing to do on their own decision is to issue this, first of all, over collect from the taxpayers. So the county's over collected $30.5 million from us, holding it in account, making interest from it, and now betting on voters being persuaded to give up this cap. That is harming. For those who can afford maybe a property tax increase, please think about your neighbor who's on a limited income and their house rich, but their income poor. That, I think, is the number one concern actually in Jefferson County for the average voter. Jefferson County, because they made the decision to issue checks, had two benefits for their side to push their issue, which they've continued to push, and mismanage our money in this effort to take away our protections. Each time they mailed the check, that was $215,000. Now they've done that 3 times. We're close to $700,000 there. The contractor that the proponents have mentioned, I have the work orders for this contractor. It was very clearly laid out that the company hired through not a righteous, let's call it, and not, I'll address that in just a moment. That contractor was paid $300,000 or a little more than that. They were supposed to be polling for priorities in our county. I've got the work orders for what the contractor stated they would be doing, and those can be found at coballot.com. Again, coballot.com. If you look at the work orders, what the contractor was hired to do, and you'll see the wording, was to find target audiences, to find the donors who would expend resources, to provide the steering committee with information. I cannot even believe the proponents would have would even be able to say with a straight face that that was about polling. Go to coballot.com if you'd like to read more about that. When we talk about the state grants, there's nothing that stops the county from taking those grants. They just don't want to give up the excess property tax that they have over-collected from us. And what will protect us in future years when we see a 10% increase in property values, a 20, or even like we got in this last cycle, and we'll still be seeing, a 30 to 50, maybe 70%, we don't know the future. So when we give up our taxpayer protections within Jefferson County 1A, we are not able to get those back at a county level. Let me emphasize that really big. First of all, voters said no in 2019 and 2022. If you wanted polling results for the proponents, you got the results. The voters want their property tax caps. They want those protections. The state grants, the county can take those. Please do not believe that they are restricted from that. And even in recent discussions with the county, there are other state grants where they've just labeled as federal dollars and they're able to take those grants. They are continuing to try to mislead the voters in this effort. And that is partly why they hired a $300,000 contractor to try and lay the foundation for this tax increase. They overcollected $30.5 million from business owners paying property taxes, residential owners. They've over collected it from us. And now betting on the voters being persuaded to say yes to give up tax caps that they likely would never able to get back. And again, we got in this predicament because other local governments got their voters to say yes and then screamed when our taxes went up like they did. So I am going to talk about endorsements real quick. Our endorsements are the lady down the street that's on a fixed income, and she cannot afford more property taxes. She is in danger of having a lien against her home. We have people who have problems filling their grocery cart with their limited budget, and the county with 1A wants to put commercial higher taxes on a grocery store as an example that result in higher cost of goods. Voters said no in 2019 and 2022. How much more clear do we need to be? We are a grassroots organization fighting this, and our information can be found at keepourtaxcaps.com. And I hope that voters will understand that we cannot tax people out of their homes. Housing affordability is the biggest issue we face, and 1A does nothing at all to help that, and in fact, worsens the situation. I'm Natalie Menton, keepourtaxcaps.com. Please support affordability in Jefferson County and vote no on 1A.
Thank you so much, Natalie. We appreciate that very much. You've now heard both sides of 1A, and we are going to continue to move through the ballot questions that we're looking at today. And of course, there are other ballot questions that we are not covering today. The ones that have been selected are the ones that we recognize have both policy pillar alignment with our business community as well as a potential financial impact on our business community. So that's how we've justified what you're hearing about from us today. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move us into a discussion with the proponents of Proposition 131, Tony Haas and Tyler Sandberg. The floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks, Cami, and thank you everyone at the Arvada Chamber for letting me and Tyler come and talk to you again today. I am an Arvada resident and actually retired from the Army about a month ago, and am now working as the volunteer engagement director and the Colorado state leader for an organization called Veterans for All Voters, who is supporting Proposition 131 in Colorado this year. All right, and so there's two main principles about Prop 131 that I really want to share with everyone here today. Why now? Why this? Right? Well, the first principle is that we believe that every single voter in Colorado and in America should have the opportunity to cast a meaningful vote in every single taxpayer-funded election for any candidate that they choose. And you might ask yourself, well, this is Colorado. We have some of the best, election systems in the country. We have some of the best voter access laws in the country, and you'd be 100% right. However, because of the partisan primary system that you see in most parts of the country today, many of those votes don't actually make a meaningful impact in an election, right? Due to self-sorting and the way that districts are drawn, oftentimes candidates are chosen effectively in the primary election before they even get to the general because so many seats are safe. And Tyler will talk a little bit more in detail, I think, about some of that. But the second principle that I want to kind of highlight is that candidates, elected officials, should be required to earn the support of a majority of voters to earn their seats. And again, you might think this is, in democracy in America, isn't that the case? But again, due to self-sorting and the fact that the primary elections are often the ones in which elections are decided, those candidates are often winning those seats with 33% or even less. In the rare cases where an actual competitive third-party candidate gets to a general election ballot, they often create what's often referred to as the spoiler effect, right? So essentially, you could win a seat with 30% or less of the vote, and you're only really responsive to, and you're only really incentivized to represent the partisan base of your party in order to survive your next primary election. Prop 131, implementing open all candidate party primaries and ranked choice voting in the general elections, addresses both of those principles and really opens up election systems so that more people, including the 48% of Coloradans who are not affiliated with either the Republican or Democratic Party, a chance to meaningfully participate in our elections. And right before I pass off Tyler, I'll just say one more thing. This is a big thing that we're trying to do. This is a fundamental change in the way that we select candidates and the way that elected officials are then incentivized to govern once they win their seats. And so I could understand why there might be some reserve around, a measure this big. But I'll say this, we as Coloradans and as Americans should not be afraid to take charge of our democracy and steer it in the direction we want it to go. If in 1893, the people of Colorado had been scared of changing, they wouldn't have been the first state in the country to pass universal women's suffrage through a ballot initiative. And Colorado is ready for this, and Coloradans, I think, deserve Prop 131 and the advantages that it brings. And with that, I'll hand it over to Tyler to talk about implementation and some of the more practical aspects of the measure.
I think what this means is we're going to bring the temperature down on our politics. A study found that Colorado has the most polarized state legislature in the nation. The furthest left and the furthest right, the gap between those two, between a Tim Hernandez and a Scott Bottoms, are so wide. But Coloradans, we're a much more moderate type. If you look at how we vote in ballot measures, when national reporters come to town, they ask me to describe what Colorado's politics are like. And I say, we love guns, God, gays, and ganja, but not government. We are very much a live and let live state, but our partisan politics don't allow us to express that. Our ballot measure votes are not expressed in how the Capitol behaves, and that's because the system incentivizes extremism. I'm a political consultant. I'm a Republican consultant. So I'm one of the many people responsible for filling up your mailboxes and your TV screens with attack ads. If we pass Prop 131, those are going to be less effective. Why? Because the candidate I'm trying to elect doesn't need just to beat the other guy. They have to win people's second votes. In a four-way race in the general election, you're very likely not going to get 50%. And so if you don't get 50% on the first round, then the fourth place finisher, their voters, their second choice gets reassigned. And so I have to make an affirmative case for multiple sets of voters. I can't just go and attack the other guy and beat them up and say terrible things about them within the bounds of the First Amendment and win the election that way. I can't win ugly. I have to win by building a coalition. I have to actually win a majority vote. People think in elections that majority wins. That's not true. A lot of people win with pluralities and they do it dirty. And right now I'm hired to win for my candidates, win for my causes by any means necessary. And that's never going to change in politics. So what do? We change the rules to incentivize a much better, kind of more optimistic sense of politics. I have to make an affirmative case for my candidate, why they're the best candidate, but people who aren't not choosing them as number one, why they're a good second choice. So I have to think about making a policy case, why my candidate's choices on taxes, on agriculture policy, on energy policy are beneficial to more than just my supporters that are right there as top supporters. So I think our politics have gotten overheated. I think increasingly we're looking at our choices in the general election. And we're like, these are our options. We're choosing a lesser of two evils. Shouldn't we have a system that incentivizes choosing people rather than to vote for someone and vote against someone? And when you have these head-to-head elections, it becomes a negative partisanship. I'm voting against the other guy. I'm voting against the other party. That doesn't happen under Prop 131. Under Prop 131, you have to win a majority. So you have to make politics a game of addition again instead of a game of division. So I think this brings down the temperature and allows Coloradans much more nuanced views. I think we're much more moderate, much more interesting, I think, than our partisan politics would lead you to believe at the Capitol. So I think Colorado's very unique nature can be expressed in 131. And frankly, we're going to have a better politics, a more hopeful politics, and slash and burn just isn't going to work the way it does under the current system. And even though I do that for a living, I believe in our democracy more than I believe in the next election and the next attack ad. I really would like to see Coloradans' hopes be expressed in our politics and not just our fears.
Perfect. Thank you both. I will offer to everyone again, if you have questions that you want to pop into the chat, we're happy to circle back to those as we round out today's conversation with all of you. As I said at the beginning, and just a quick reminder, we always do our best to find opposition, but we do seek formal opposition versus individual opposition. And so in the case of this one, there was not formal opposition, but when you visit our voter guide, which I'll drop in the chat again for you, there are some opposition statements that you'll find there. So you'll be able to understand some of the perspectives that our Advocacy CAPS Council, as well as other partners, have maybe expressed over time. So again, thank you to you both for being here. We're going to keep on moving, and it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Danny Katz, who is going to talk with us about Keep Colorado Moving 7A. Danny, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks. Appreciate being here. Again, my name's Danny Katz. I work for a nonprofit organization called COPER, the Colorado Public Interest Research Group. And we are one of the organizations that's helping to support the Keep Colorado Moving campaign, and are asking you all to vote yes on RTD 7A this coming election. I do have a few slides, so I'll go ahead and share my screen here. What you'll see on the ballot, if you've gotten your ballot already, is that without imposing any new tax or increasing any tax rates, that's the main focus of RTD 7A. Let me give you just a couple of quick backgrounds in case you're not as familiar with the RTD transit system that we have here in the Denver metro area. It's one of the largest in the country in terms of geography. So it serves over 3 million people, lots of counties and municipalities, including Arvada and the neighboring areas. It's primarily funded through a 1% sales and use tax. What 7A will deal with is the 0.6% base system part of that sales and use tax. There is also a 0.4% fast tracks tax. This does not govern that. So if you're familiar with fast tracks, which is the tax that has primarily been building out the rail system around the Denver metro area, fast tracks is separate from this. So the 7A will only deal with that 0.6% base system tax that's really going to cover the operations of a lot of the transit that we see around town. What does this do? So unlike, I think you heard about the Jefferson County one earlier, RTD has not had a Tabor cap in effect since 1995. So it's been sort of paused, or RTD has been exempted from having that cap. So every year RTD has been able to retain the revenue that it's raised and use that on transit. However, that Tabor, that exemption does expire this year. And so starting in January, if we don't vote yes, then there will be that Tabor cap, and there will potentially be scenarios where RTD will not be able to keep the money they raise. So this is really about keeping the status quo, what we've had for the last 25 plus years. And again, as I said, this is mostly focused on the base system, the 0.6%. A couple of numbers, that 0.6% raises about $600 million. So it's $600 million that'd be subject to Tabor starting in 2025 in terms of that Tabor revenue cap. We don't exactly know how much RTD would have to cut in order to abide by this. So, you know, if you look around at other government entities that have had this similar cap on how much they're allowed to keep from the revenue, you know, it can be as high as 7 to 10%. Some years, I mean, some years it's zero. So some years there would be no refunds. Other years it would be larger. We think the largest would probably be $50 million. And that's a significant hit for RTD, which I would say right now isn't providing the level of service and coverage that we all want from our transit system. And so less money, I don't think, is going to help that situation. It's not going to, less money won't result in more buses on the road and more service. And so it doesn't seem like it will help solve some of the problems that we see from you know, maintenance backlogs and need for more security and safety investments and those sorts of things. We have strong support, over 100 organizations and business groups so far. I'm listing a few here: Metro Mayor's Caucus Denver, Metro Chamber. Just last night, the Denver version of the Colorado Restaurants Association endorsed Cross Disability Coalition. And I think, you know, you see all these different groups, I think, recognizing that there's just lots of value in transit, lots of different ways people use transit, from employees to people who don't have any other option to drive, people who want to leave their car home, people who are looking to reduce pollution and not have as big of an impact on the environment. So there's just a lot of reasons, and thus we see a lot of support for this. As I said, again, this 0.6%, what does that go to? It goes to the operation of the services. It goes to repairing and maintaining the stops, the stations, the rail line, the rail lines and buses. It goes to ensuring we have those services for people with disabilities. This is a cleaner, more efficient mode of transportation at a time when we have some pretty bad air pollution. It helps support innovative programs like what RTD's run recently around allowing youth to ride without having to pay a fare, security safety measures. So funding goes to a lot of different things. And as a reminder, there's a lot of different reasons why we have a transit system. There's a whole host of people in our community who don't have any other options or really shouldn't be driving at this point. And so this gives them the ability to continue to stay connected to their community. There's air quality and climate benefits. This is also helpful from an affordability perspective. If you can reduce how many cars you need to own in order to get around, public transit is much more affordable. There's big safety benefits as well. And this is also one of our best tools we have to combat congestion. More and more people getting in more and more cars is just making congestion worse. So bottom line, we don't want to cut RTD's funding right now. For 25 years, they haven't had this revenue raising cap in place. The actual sales tax won't change. It's just how much money will RTD be able to retain. And so we want to keep that status quo moving. We want to keep transit moving. That's the website there, keepcoloradomoving.com. And happy to answer questions at the end or in the chat if anyone wants any more details about anything. So I'll stop right there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Danny. We really appreciate it. We will definitely make sure that those links are up on our website after, so you all can reference those through the voter guide as well. We're going to round out today's presentations and then move into questions with a presentation from Jim Whitfield talking about the Arvada and Fairmount Fire merger. We're going to get a little bit of detail on this. I will tell you, this is an opportunity for us to add some additional details to our website. This is an important community issue we wanted to make sure you had access to today. It is not something our group has formally looked at yet, so we will have to upload details on this later. But Jim, I will turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more.
Thank you, Cami. And again, this issue from a voting perspective is going to be approved by the residents of Fairmount Fire, but it affects both, all of us. I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Hold on a sec. Let me make sure I get that the right one shared here. Share screen. There we go. All right, you can see it now, right? Just want to confirm. Thank you. So, yeah, I've got just 3 slides here regarding the merger of the Arvada Fire Protection District and the Fairmount Fire District. That will require, again, approval by the constituents of Fairmount this November. Arvada and Fairmount are both special districts that provide services to Arvada, Wheat Ridge, and unincorporated Jefferson County. The current Arvada boundary is shaded in yellow on the slide that you're looking at, and the Fairmount boundary is shaded in blue. The auxiliary buildings and fire stations for both districts are noted on the map as red icons. A merged district would be the combination of both shaded areas. FYI, just for your benefit, every fire district in the state of Colorado is obviously bordered by another district, and we're all right-sized for your normal course of action and responses. And obviously, no one can predict the future, and there are circumstances where we all cover for each other, right? Some semblance of mutual aid or auto aid. So it's always in everybody's best interest to have healthy neighbors, okay, when it comes down to providing the necessary emergency services to everybody. Both districts, both Fairmount and Arvada, are ISO 1 and CFAI accredited. Both departments have a strong commitment to serve their citizens with excellence. About 15 years ago, the 2 districts completed a merger feasibility study, and the results of those studies were favorable, but there just wasn't an appetite for pursuing a merger at that time. In recent years, the cost of operations for all districts, I think we've all noticed the increase of cost, have increased significantly for both districts. We've been able to accommodate and absorb those. There's been a little bit more of a problem for the size of a district like Fairmount, just with some of the unique circumstances of its makeup. and its staff and everything. And so we've noticed that stress. In addition to that, the Fairmount Fire Chief, Alan Fletcher, was retiring, and their board of directors were starting to consider their options. So the leadership from our district and their district had a meeting to see if there was any mutual interest in reconsidering a merger. A refresh of that feasibility study was completed and was very favorable from all perspectives. At that point in time, we initiated a services intergovernmental agreement, or an IGA, to share services between the two districts and share staff. So, like for instance, their finance director, the finance director for Fairmount Fire is the current seated Arvada finance director. So, benefits of the merger. The primary largest one is that currently Fairmount contracts out its ambulance service, and that is only on a 9 to 5 basis, essentially. So the first immediate huge benefit of this merger is that district, the entire new district, will have 24/7 advanced life support ambulance coverage. In addition to that, we'll have enhanced wildfire response capabilities and coverage with more brush trucks and wildland firefighters. We'll have a very unified, obviously, wildland prevention approach. An increased number of hazardous materials technicians and available for hazmat emergencies. And then on top of that, just all the administrative and operational efficiencies and opportunities that come with a merger. You don't need 2 chiefs. You don't need 2 fire marshals. You don't need 2 HR directors. You don't need, it's just something that obviously provides those semblance of cost savings, which can then be addressed towards staffing needs and or apparatus. I mean, the cost of fire apparatus these days is in the million plus range, and the delivery times these days are like 2 to 4 years. It's just crazy. So this if this merger does pass, and I'll show you the ballot measure here on the next slide. It will enable a lot of our staff to get redeployed as we staff all of the stations. And then I just want to make a note, we have probably one of the best fire chiefs in the nation, definitely the state. And he's got gobs of experience. And funny enough, a merger is not one of the things that he's actually taken on. So I have all the, myself and the board, we've got all the confidence in the world that he will shuttle us through this merger should it pass, just because of what a great leader that he is. So the ballot measures, and all 3 of these must pass, and again being voted on by the Fairmount citizens as ballot measure 6A, right? So it's a confirmation that yes, Arvada can essentially assimilate the Fairmount Fire into its district. 6B, which is a mill levy increase of 3.91 for the Fairmount residents only, just in order for them to equally pay what Arvada Fire residents pay now. Just a point of order here, I guess, is that if this does not pass, based on what finance has said, is that Fairmount, in order to essentially remain on its own, they would need a minimum of a 5 mil increase. And then ballot measure question 6C, which again is a confirmation from the Fairmount side that Fairmount can essentially dissolve and become part of the Arvada Fire Protection District. So if these all are approved, we will start operations as a unified district on January 1 of 2025. If it fails, I would assume we would probably continue to keep the existing IGA in place as the Fairmount leadership considers its options. More information can be found at the website friends of fairmountfire.org, or you can take a snapshot of the QR code and or send an email to the email address that you see on the slide. And thank you, Cami, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Appreciate it. If you don't mind, there you go. Perfect. So we're now moving into the Q&A part. I do have one question that has been sent to me in the chat that is for Tyler and Tony. So if you both want to come off mute here, you're back in the hot seat here for a second. So the question is really to better understand if this passes, what does that mean for more independent candidates, those that maybe are unaffiliated and generally feel right now that we're operating in kind of a two-party system? Does this shift the opportunity for more independent candidates to be elected for office?
Yeah, I mean, good. The very short answer is yeah, absolutely. It absolutely creates a real path for independents or candidates that are not affiliated with either the Republican or the Democratic Party to actually win, a general election if they can, if their campaign and their message resonates with a majority of voters. That independent now actually has a chance to win and not being a spoiler, as you see in many cases when there's a Republican, a Democrat, and a third party, Libertarian or Green candidate on a general election. Often that third party candidate is just siphoning votes away from one of the two major candidates or the other. And with the ranked choice method in the general election, that spoiler effect really goes away. So you can confidently vote for that third party or independent candidate if you want, and know that even if they don't, receive a majority of the vote, your second place vote will still go to the candidate that you like second most. So it absolutely creates a path for more ideological diversity.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question is still for you. How would a candidate get on the ballot to be considered? And then part two is, do they have to petition to be on the ballot if they are not selected by a party? So maybe a little bit more on that process to getting placed on the ballot.
Yeah, so the ballot access doesn't necessarily change a whole lot, with the exception of the fact that winning a partisan primary doesn't grant you automatic admission to the general election ballot, right? So you can still get onto the primary election ballot process through the signature collection process. So everyone is now on a level playing field when it comes to access to the primary election and effectively the general election ballot as well.
Awesome. All right, I'm keeping an eye on the chat and I don't see any other questions that have come in. So I'll give it one more awkward second of silence on the Zoom call, and then we'll close us out with a few minutes to spare today. And there's some resources being put in the chat by Natalie Menton for those of you that are interested in looking at those. Okay. Well, with that, I would like to take a moment to thank all of our presenters today. We know that those are labors of love for all of you as you're helping to support these campaigns that you all care so much about. And we appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedules this time of year to help educate our community on such important issues. I do want to invite all of you to join us tomorrow, or I'm sorry, Friday. I don't know what day it is at this point because I'm in the thick of all of this with all of you. On Friday, the 18th, we're hosting our State of the Region event at the Bridge Revived Church there. It is a collaborative event with the other chambers in Jefferson County, where we'll be featuring topics around housing, homelessness, crime and safety, and just understanding what's going on across Jefferson County and our region. So we hope you can join us for that event. It's only $10 to attend, and we'd love to see you there in person. Check back on the voter guide. We'll get this uploaded for you in the next day or so. Feel free to share it. And again, thank you for being educated voters. We appreciate you all very much and hope you have a great day. Thank you.